Welcome to Tell the Truth, Say It How It Is. My name's Shannon. I'm going to be your host. Haley James Scott once said, "The truth matters, so tell it, no matter what." And that's exactly what we are going to do here. We're going to tell the truth about things that people are afraid to talk about. The truth can hurt, but you gotta embrace it. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of molding my words to please others. Here at Tell the Truth, Say It How It Is, we're going to be brutally honest, no sugarcoating things, so have at it. Tell the truth, say it how it is. In this episode, we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter and the Women's Rights March. We will look at why these movements were started, how people feel about them, and the impact they held. This is not going to be an easy conversation, but it is one that is needed to be had. More and more people are having this talk around the world. Now it's our turn. It is time to talk about these issues, and that conversation starts here. Let's start with the definition of truth, because honestly, I don't think anyone knows it anymore. The definition of truth, according to Webster's Dictionary, is that which is true or in accordance with fact or reality. So I guess speaking the truth means stating facts. It's something that cannot be argued. Different people can have different truths to the same situation or subject. It all depends on who is present and the circumstances around them. According to Shape Your Happiness, telling the truth is important because it can help you get to the deeper meaning of any issues that are at hand. It can ensure you are confronting yourself so that you can continue on a path towards a growth mindset. When you're honest with everyone, it might be hard at the time, but eventually things will get better, rather than a lie where things could actually end up getting worse. The truth is always going to be there, and a lie is a choice made to avoid this. Sometimes hearing the truth is just as hard as speaking the truth. And I don't know why, but hearing the truth is hard. So imagine having to tell it to someone. According to Arena Trust Building, time and time again, when the time comes to tell a different truth, or a difficult truth, people tell me they fear they'll be misunderstood, or blamed, or criticized, or that they'll make other people feel misunderstood, blamed, or criticized. But sometimes in this life, you gotta live with the uncomfortableness. You don't want to be hurt or get hurt, and that leads to lies. You think you're protecting someone by lying, but you're not. In the end, the truth always comes out, and knowing that you lied to, or were lied to, could be heartbreaking. Getting caught in a lie is painful. It can be more painful than telling the truth. I don't even know why people lie. I'm going to say that, but people do it. It's always been done. Telling the truth is important, even if it hurts someone, because the truth always comes out. And wouldn't you rather be honest from the start than have to hurt someone or be hurt because you told a lie or you were lied to? It's not worth it. You might as well get the pain out of the way right away. I told you we'd be talking about things that would make you uncomfortable. And I just want to preface and say it's okay to be uncomfortable. Being uncomfy is a part of life. And honestly, if you're comfortable in this world, then you're not doing it right. Because there's a lot of things to be uncomfortable about. I'm trying to be honest here and put it all on the line and speak from the heart, but at the same time, that's hard because these matters are so important and everyone's afraid to talk about them. But it's time that we stop being afraid and have these conversations. So I told you we'd be talking about Black Lives Matter, the movement, what it meant, the impact, and we are. But first, I think we need to start with what Black Lives Matter is, because I think everyone forgot. In truth, it's not just protest, and it's not just sitting there and saying something. It's a lot more. It's something that's done every day, and I don't think people realize that. So if you don't already know, Black Lives Matter is a decentralized political and social movement protesting incidents of police brutality and all racially motivated violence against Black people. Might be confusing? Yeah, I thought so. So, in simpler terms, it's trying to make everyone understand and see that not everyone is treated fair. Not everyone is treated with respect or decency. And today, it's crazy to think that still happens, but it does. And it needs to stop. So, Black Lives Matter was created by Alicia Garzas, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi. They created Black Lives Matter in 2013 in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murderer. Now, you might be saying, what? No, this just happened. This has been going on for years. In 2013, Trayvon Martin was killed. And no one talks about that. No one talks about half of the people that have been hurt or murdered or abused emotionally because of these issues. So these ladies got together and created this reform. They look to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities. But I'm going to tell you now, it's more than Black communities. It's for Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans. It's for everyone and anyone who has experienced racial violence or racism, or have just not been prepared for the world with everyone in it. Many of the instances that they are fighting for have been swept under the rug. No one knows about half the things that happened. And it wasn't until George Floyd was murdered that this was brought to people's attention globally. George Floyd was murdered at the hand of a racist cop, a cop who already had 18 complaints on his official record, many of those having to do with colored individuals. Only 2 of those ended in discipline. And honestly, it wasn't even discipline. He got a citation in his folder. That was it. His badge wasn't taken away, his gun. He wasn't suspended. There was no real punishment. He just kept going with his daily life like everything was okay, and it's not. It was these events that started a conversation that, if we're honest, probably wouldn't have taken place. People like to live in ignorance, and everyone's like, oh, ignorance is bliss. But ignorance is hurtful. It hurts you, it hurts those around you, and it's time to start paying attention. Black Lives Matter has always been there. It has always been a subject. And now, today, we are finding out truths that were hidden. And it's not easy. It's not something people can do for fun, and it's not something people do because they think it's what has to be done. They do it because without it, this world won't improve. And we really need to start improving. Joining us today is Monmouth University's very own Janelle Ramirez and Tabitha Rothman, both students of the university. So thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm going to start off simple with just a few questions. Mm-hmm. Has being a person of color ever caused you to be told you could not do something?
Well, I am not a person of color. I do consider myself white, but my ethnicity is Hispanic. I feel as though I actually I experienced times when my own color, which is being white, Hispanic culture, a lot of people think that they refer to me as a gringa, which I am, but I understand the language. I fully am a part of my culture. So there has been experiences within even my own culture of, yeah, people saying no or people criticizing me.
Have you ever been stereotyped?
Unless it's in a Hispanic setting, yeah. I mean, when I go visit, I'm Ecuadorian Guatemalan. When I would go to Ecuador when I was younger, again, they would refer to me as a gringa. They would talk behind my back, not thinking that I would understand, and then I would legit come right back with something funny to say. It's even happened here. Like, I would be at ShopRite or whatever, and somebody will say something, and I'm quick to say something back in the language. So, yeah.
Do you think as a individual, like, you've ever fit into a stereotype?
I feel like it's just I'm always gonna fit in a stereotype. That's just how the world is. It can be you're a student, you're an athlete, you're black, you're white, you're Asian, you're Hispanic. You're always gonna fit into a stereotype. So I feel like it's inevitable in this world.
What was your opinions on the Black Lives Matter protests and how they transpired?
It was a lot. Because I've never seen anything like that. It's kind of my fault because I was not educated on previous riots and stuff like that. And I come from a family who's heavily in law enforcement, and I remember throughout that time, a lot of people, like my own friends, like they were not happy with me. And mind you, my dad is retired, my mom is still working. But like a lot of people would be like, I can't understand how you support this, and I didn't even say anything. I wouldn't even post anything. But they were like, how come you're not fighting for the movement? And it's because I was trying to educate myself as to what Black Lives Matter was, the situations that were occurring, like how it was impacting not only myself, how is it impacting other people. So it was just a lot to take in, and I wanted to be educated and know what I was talking about. And I try to look at it in a lens of an outsider, because it's hard, because you really don't understand what they're going through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, do you think that someone has to be one side or the other, or do you think there can be a happy medium?
I would say there should be a happy medium. I mean, it's just really hard because you have to go back to the past and really dig deep as to where this stems from, which I don't want to sound like I'm uneducated or educated enough. So this is very systemic. So I feel like we really need to dive deep into like where it started from and how we can move on from it, and how it could be better in the future for other people.
Do you think that the purpose of Black Lives Matter, like the racial equality, was talked about soon enough, or do you think that it was just thrown at us randomly?
I mean, I'm going to use it from my experience. I don't think that I was fully educated as to what Black Lives Matter was, or to any organization that works for racial inequality. I was not educated on that, even in my school. I come from a very diverse school. I'm proud of that. I'm from Belleville, New Jersey. So I love the diversity I'm from, but I wasn't properly educated. And I feel like it should be talked about in schools.
Do you think that it was talked about just because of the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor murders, or do you think it was because people realized what was going on more because we were in a pandemic?
I would say through the events of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, that is when Black Lives Matter really had, I guess, an impact and was really spoken about on the news. Because, again, from what I heard, what I read, I really didn't hear anything about the organization. I feel like as though throughout the pandemic, though, we did hear more about it, but I think it's from those two events where it really transpired to what was going on with that organization.
What do you think it was about these events that kicked this off? Because, like, this has happened in the past before, so what do you think? It was this. Why do you think it was this that set it off?
I think it had to do with the social media aspect as to, I mean, for George Floyd, there was a whole video on it. Like, that was videotaped. And obviously, in this day and age, anything is uploaded. People see it in seconds. They record it themselves if it's taken down, and other people across the world can see it. So I feel like that has definitely played an impact as to how, or as to why this was so impactful, I guess you can say, in at that time or even now. But I definitely think that it's gonna get, not, I don't want to say worse, but I think it's a positive that we have social media, but at the same time, it's like in your face all the time. So I feel like social media is definitely the reason why we've heard a lot about it.
I know you said people need to get educated about the topic, but do you think there's anything else that could happen or should happen?
I would say take accountability, not only as yourself as an individual to get educated, but in a systemic way. Like, I know for sure there's people in the force, as police officers, firemen. I know for a fact there's people who still have, they are racist. I guess that's what, yeah, racism is still going on, basically. And I feel like people really need to take accountability as to how they're perceiving the world. We're in 2021. I really don't think we should even be having these problems, but the fact that we are should really open up attention to everyone.
So you think holding yourself and others accountable is important?
Yeah, I mean, I think that even if you're, I guess you can say, even a bystander and you witness something, for me, it was hard time to talk to my parents about certain things. Mind you, my mom, she's darker than me, so I honestly never, I don't even think I've ever had that conversation with my mom as to if she refers to herself as a black woman or as white, because my mom is, this is kind of funny, they call her Mocha. And like, my mom is really dark. If you see me, you wouldn't think that I'm my mother's daughter because I am legit white. So I never had that conversation with my parents. My dad, on the other hand, he's very fair. So having that conversation with them was hard because, again, they're in the force and they have a different view on it because they were in a diverse culture. They said that, like, saying the N-word to them, not with the hard R, but with the A for them, it was acceptable back then because that's how they used to greet each other. And for me, I can never even say it, even if it's in a song or anything like that. So it's also with generation and how they grew up, their occupation as to how they view the world. So it's gonna take time, and it's unfortunate that it has to take time. It should just already be like accepting everyone. Your color should not matter.
So do you think that, okay, so a lot of people are talking about police reform. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's important to take action in that matter, such as like getting rid of all those cops and teaching them how not to be racist, especially the older ones who are set in their ways? Or do you think that this is just how it is and it's what it is?
I would say that's such a hard question because it would be hard to debunk the entire system for what it is already. I mean, again, it's unfortunate that there are people out there who still think that way. And I feel like even as though you can give them classes, you can give them programs, they still might not care. So, and it's kind of like that good cop, bad cop kind of feel. How would you actually know? And I honestly wouldn't even know how they would even go about it. A lot of people are like, they should just debunk the entire system, no policing, and that would be good, but then there's certain people who really need to call the police when they're in help. And I know, like, there was on social media, and if you're in this situation, you can do this instead, and I understand that. But for me, like, my first instinct is to call 911. So it would be very tricky as to see how they would do that in the near future.
Definitely. Well, those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you for joining us, and I hope this wasn't too torturous for you.
Thank you for having me.
So thanks for joining me today. It's a pleasure to have you. We're going to start off real simple. with a few questions. Has being a person of color ever caused you to be told you could not do something?
Definitely. I think, in the media especially, there's so much representation of, there's not a lot of representation of people of color. So I think just being told that, like, through the media, basically, like, not directly, but just seeing it growing up, I felt like, I couldn't do it because I didn't see anyone that looked like me doing it.
No, that's awesome. Well, it's not awesome, but your answer was awesome.
Thank you.
Have you ever been stereotyped?
Growing up, I do think there were times I think I was stopped in the airport, like randomly selected a lot suspiciously. And I think when I was younger, when, my dad's Muslim, so kids knew that and they used to call me like a terrorist in like third grade.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Do you think you've ever fit into a stereotype?
Honestly, no. I don't think so. Maybe not really. I don't think so.
What is your opinion on the Black Lives Matter protests?
I think people have every right to be upset. I definitely agree with what they're standing for, and I think there's so much media, there's so much coverage of trying to make them look bad. I think that there should be more I think people are kind of trying to twist certain narrative to make people protesting look really bad and only show the looting and stuff. But I think that is a great cause, and I think people have every right to be outraged.
Like you said, that they're only showing the looting and stuff like that. Do you think that the protesters who are peacefully assembling are doing it for a just cause and in the right way?
I definitely think so. I definitely think it's the right cause, a great cause, and I do think it's extremely fair. I think if anything, it's just the fact that they're being peaceful about it. I think that's very hard. So, when you're angry, I give them a lot of credit to do that.
Do you think these issues of race are talked about enough, or do you think that they're only coming to light now because of the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor murders?
I definitely think that they weren't talked about enough. I think that there were so many other cases, and I thought it was so interesting that these were the cases specifically that sparked everyone's attention. It's great, but I think that there's so much before that happened too. I think it should just keep being talked about, and not just when something happens. It should just be talked about all the time because there's so many issues.
What else, if anything, do you think can be done or needs to be done to help this cause?
It's so tough. I honestly just think that we need entire reform in the system, and I don't know how long it would take, and I don't know how it would happen, but I do think that police reform, reform of the justice system, I think that needs to be completely changed. And I think, I'm thinking, I guess, only getting rid of these people's biases, and because a lot of these systems were founded on racism. So it's how do we eradicate that? You have to basically rebuild the entire system and take years. So.
Just one last question is, do you feel you yourself have been both a victim of racism and someone who has portrayed racism in the past, whether you've meant to or not?
I think I've been a victim because I grew up, where I grew up, there's a lot of, ignorant people. And I'm sure when I was younger, especially, I think so many people grew up with these internalized, it's just, we all have this internalized racism when we're younger because of how our system, I feel we grew up in this racist system. So it's we tend to, hold on to that when we're, younger and don't know better. But I think it's a matter of unlearning that. And I definitely unlearned that, So.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you for joining us, and I hope this wasn't too torturous for you.
Yes.
I grew up in a diverse city and community and learned early the importance of seeing color. People are always oh, let's be colorblind. I learned it's important to see color and to talk about it because people are often afraid to talk, but it has to be done. I always thought this was a common practice, seeing color, talking about it, embracing it. It wasn't until I got older that I learned it wasn't. And I saw firsthand the racism someone can face. I wasn't a victim of racism, lucky for me. But my friends weren't that lucky. They had to prove themselves constantly, and I don't think that's fair. I saw how people profile others based on what they look. And I don't know, maybe I'm, I don't know, out of place here, but to me that's not okay. People are more than just their skin color, and everyone needs to start realizing that. Whether you think you practice that or not, it's something you have to work at all the time, and you should embrace people based on what they do and what they make you feel and their personality, because maybe they're really funny and you would never know that because you're judging them based on the color of their skin. So it's time to get to know people for who they are, not what they look like. So how about we talk about another issue that demands attention? Because it's not just Black Lives Matter that needs attention. There's a lot of issues in this world. And I think this issue deserves to be talked about too. It's time to talk about women's rights. Because God knows we don't have many of them. On January 20th, 2017, Donald Trump said, "Grab him by the pussy and you can do anything." What? That's not okay in any sense. And I think people started to realize that. Because women aren't treated fairly. They're not given the same respect or the same attention that men are. Yeah, women are paid attention to, but not in the classroom or when it matters. Their attention is all about their bodies and not their minds, which, surprise, surprise, can be really powerful. On January 21st, 2017, Tamika Malroy, Carmen Perez, Linda Sarsour, and Bob Bland started a movement because they too saw that saying from Donald Trump at his inauguration speech the day before, it wasn't okay. So they decided to start a march, the Women's March, a worldwide protest to fight for women and their rights so that women can finally get the attention they deserve. In 2017, millions of people took to the streets all over our nation in response to what happened at the Capitol just the day before. It was amazing to see how many people came out for that. Today, women's rights are barely talked about. Even though women are still seen as less than men, no one talks about it. It's just accepted, and it shouldn't be. Did you know a white woman makes 79 cents to a man's dollar? Or that a black woman makes 62 cents to his dollar? What about the fact that Hispanics make 54 cents to his dollar? Or that American Indians and Alaska Natives make 57 cents to his dollar? It's surprising that Asian women make 90 cents to a man's dollar. But it's all how you see people and their worth. We're all worth the same, so we should be treated that way. It's 2020 and women still barely have rights. Yeah, we can vote. But it's up for debate whether we can make our own decisions. And that sucks. Men have the freedom to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. But come on, people. It's 2021. People are saying, my body, my choice. They started saying that in 2020 about mask mandates. My body, my choice. I'm not wearing a mask. And that was seen as okay. Yeah, it upset some people, but, it's your choice, ultimately. It's your body, your choice. You're right. But when it comes to abortions, we say the same thing, but it's not true, because now it's seen as our body, their choice, because Texas is trying to control women and what they do with their bodies. It's come to a Supreme Court decision, and they're trying to get it overturned. And it feels like this is a step back when really we need to take multiple steps forward, not just one. I don't know about you, but it's time to acknowledge women's rights. These conversations are necessary in life, and it's sad, but it's true. So, thank you for helping me start these very important conversations and listening to my thoughts, my opinions, and yeah, even my rambling. So, until next time, guys. Bye, y'all.